Good evening. Welcome to the Community Awareness Committee's April panel discussion. Our topic this evening is protecting our children. I am Trish Steiner, Chair of the Community Awareness Committee. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I will briefly explain to you who we are. We are a committee of the Neighborhood Safety Commission. The Neighborhood Safety Commission is comprised of individuals appointed by the chairman and the district commissioners. We welcome you and thank you for attending this evening, and welcome those of you who are watching us on Channel TV 23. Our committee members are Vicki Plunkett, Pearl Roberts, and Joel Cope. We have file cards available in the audience for written questions. Vicki, Pearl, and I will be glad to take your written questions. Please turn your cell phone off or on silent, as your phone will interfere with the broadcasting of this discussion. Thank you. Our moderator this evening is Kim McCoy, Director, Victims Witness Unit, Office of the District Attorney. We especially want to thank Kim for being our phenomenal moderator. Kim will now introduce you to our distinguished panel members. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for being with us this evening. We're so pleased that we have such a distinguished panel of members here with us tonight to talk to us about protecting our children here in Cobb County and in our state and in our nation at large. As the director of the Victim Witness Unit in Cobb, obviously I see children who have been hurt as a result of criminal acts that are perpetrated upon them on a daily basis. While we're going to talk some about those criminal actions and what we do to protect children in the court system, we also want to talk about what we do to protect our children within the community, the different services and programs that are available, and the different agencies that exist to lend support and assistance to those children. So if I could ask the panelists to take a second and introduce us to you as a person, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your agency, and then we'll get started with our panel questions. And we'll start with Lieutenant Rowland from Cobb Fire.
Good evening. I'm glad to be here. Lieutenant Shane Rowland with Cobb County Fire Department. I currently work at the Safety Village, which is located on Al Bishop Drive. It's a unique place, and it's actually a very different place. And what we do is we have personnel that work there full-time and part-time, and we bring children into the village and we teach them fire and police safety and prevention. And we also send people out to where we can go into businesses and talk about safety too.
Great. Thank you, Lieutenant. Chuck?
My name's Chuck Boring. I'm an assistant district attorney in the Cobb County District Attorney's Office. I supervise the Crimes Against Women and Children Division. Our office prosecutes all felony crimes in Cobb County. My specific division, we have 4 prosecutors that handle the prosecution of, it's now the Special Victims Unit. We've kind of recast the name of the unit, I guess to be more TV friendly, I don't know. Actually, it encompasses more of what we actually prosecute, because Crimes Against Women and Children doesn't necessarily say exactly what we do. So we handle all cases of sexual abuse of adults or children in Cobb County. We also handle any cases of physical or sexual abuse of children, working hand in hand with the Cobb County Police Department and Safe Path and other law enforcement jurisdictions. We also handle human trafficking cases and various other special projects we get handed.
Thank you, Chuck. Crystal?
My name is Crystal Weeks. I'm the Executive Assistant at Safe Path Children's Advocacy Center. Safe Path is basically a child-friendly place where children that are going through the process of child sexual abuse allegations or any form of child abuse can receive the support and support that they need along the process. We work very closely with the District Attorney's Office and also the Crimes Against Children Unit to support the child and the family as they go through the process.
Great. Thank you. Detective?
Good evening. I'm Detective Adam Payne. I'm with the Cobb County Police Department's Special Victims Unit, also known as the Crimes Against Children Unit. In the Special Victims Unit, we investigate, we're separated in 2 divisions. Crimes against domestic violence. I specialize in investigating crimes against children. Our office is separate from any other unit within the police department. Our office is actually attached to Ms. Weeks' office at Safe Path. Our investigations, once completed for prosecution, we send them up to Mr. Boring for prosecution. We investigate any sexual abuse allegations that occur against a child, any physical abuse allegations that occur against a child, and any forms of neglect or any crime that you may think of that occur against a child. Age ranges from the time of birth to anywhere up to 18 years old to a child. I'm also part of the FBI task force in human trafficking. These involve children, male or female, who are sold into sex trade up till they're adults. Some children are sometimes sold by commonly known as pimps in many different ways, either online or even by word of mouth on the streets. And this is metro-wide. The task force is metro-wide.
Great. And while Crimes Against Children has that specific focus, you mentioned you also have a domestic violence unit. And obviously, if children are victims of or witnesses to domestic violence incidents, there's a unit that would respond to them as well.
Yes, ma'am. That is part of our unit as well. There's detectives that specialize in that, and there is a special law at cruelty in the third degree when a child witnesses a domestic violence incident between people that are charged with a domestic violence crime.
Excellent. Thank you for that explanation. And I do want to educate our community a little bit. We have a fantastic partnership between Safe Path and our Crimes Against Children unit that while many many communities do have a children's advocacy center and obviously police response, we are very cutting edge here in Cobb between Safe Path and our police department. As the detective said, they actually are housed in the same building. So they work collaboratively and cooperatively together on a daily basis, and that is something that is extremely unique to Cobb, and want to make sure that our both TV and live audience understands how fortunate we are in Cobb that partnership exists. So thank you on behalf of our community for that partnership. So I'm going to start asking some specific questions, and I will direct those to each of our panelists as we move along. I'm first going to give each of you the opportunity to kind of expand a little bit on your services and what your agency does. So just a really broad question here is, what does child protection mean to you, and what does your agency do to protect children? So Lieutenant, if you don't mind, we're going to start with you once again.
I'll take this from a fire department standpoint, I guess. And when we talk about protection, we usually talk about prevention, and we try to stop the injury before it happens. And how do we do this? Well, at the Safety Village, we do a lot of, we go out there, we find out how are children getting injured, and then we take that and we turn it into curriculum. And then we try to, we come up with curriculum and we teach the students, and that's how we base our curriculum, is by going, and we do it through different ways too. We bring the kids to us. We have programs. We have second and fourth graders that come to our Safety Village, and we talk about, of course, stop, drop, and roll. We do have full-time police officers that work with us too. We have 2 police officers and 4 firefighters that work full-time. And we talk about stop, drop, and roll. We talk about bullying, latchkey kids when they come home alone and things they can do. And we also talk about, we have a huge, we call it our Sparky's house. And the kids love that. And that's where we talk about how to get out of a house safely, meeting place. And then, of course, we have the famous puppet show, which the kids love. And that incorporates everything. And we also go into how to prevent drownings and electrical safety, too.
Okay. And I've had the opportunity to go to the Safety Village, so I can tell you how fantastic it is. And other than the fire and the police programs, there's also opportunities for children to learn things about electrical safety and storm safety and germ safety and issues. And I think there's a new exhibit coming about water safety.
We're in the process now of building a water safety, but we do, Cobb EMC built we call these interactive buildings, and the students can go in there and they can and actually touch different things and press buttons, and it teaches them about different electrical hazards, flying a kite, or digging a hole without not knowing what's underneath. And like you said, the water, it's not done yet, but of course we're still working on the curriculum there, but we're going to talk about drowning prevention. Again, kids learn by getting their hands-on, and that's what the purpose of the village is, to bring kids in and have hands-on interaction with them so they can take this home and share it with their parents.
Excellent. And the county has committed every second and fourth grader, I believe, goes through the programs at the Safety Village.
Yes, ma'am. We do second and fourth grade. We also do homeschools. During the summer, we do summer. They come there 3 times a year, and we have a huge summer programs where they come out, interact with the firefighters and other different agencies. But we also send firefighters out to schools where we still talk to kindergartners. We have a whole program that we hit every single kindergartner school too. So we try to continue all the way from preschool all the way, and we're working on middle school and high school too at this time.
Very good. Thank you. Chuck, I'm going to skip that question for you right now and stay with the community aspect. So, Crystal, if you don't mind telling us, what does child protection mean for Safe Path, and what does your agency do to protect children?
Child's protection to Safe Path means what our name is, creating a safe path for children, making sure that they have the opportunity to go on to be successful and productive citizens so that it gives back to our community. And for us to be able to do that, we, as Mr. Boring said, we work very closely with the team that works to support the child throughout the cases. Safe Path is a nationally recognized children's advocacy center, as you mentioned before. We are very fortunate to have a Safe Path in Cobb County because a lot of counties do not have a Safe Path for children. And so we're very fortunate to have a place like Safe Path where the families and children can get the support that they need. Safe Path is basically a one-stop shop from the onset of a case of child abuse, whether it's treatment, intervention, therapy, as they're going throughout the process, we're the consistent factor throughout the whole case. We support our team members as they work to do their roles in protecting the child, and we just make sure that they have that consistent person from the beginning to the end. And also, as he mentioned, prevention is something that we're very involved with as well. Safety of children is for the adults. That's their responsibility. But we also not only have a program for the adults, which is Stewards of Children. That is an educational program to teach them, adults, how to better respond and react to child abuse. But then we have something fun and engaging for the children, which are our rules for safety. You know, it's very kid-friendly, fun, and educational. So that's what we do to try to better support our community and our team partners and to make sure that all children, not just in Cobb, but throughout the state of Georgia, are protected and have an opportunity for a bright future.
Great. Thank you very much. Detective, I want to go to you with this question now. What does child protection mean to Cobb Police, and what does your agency do to protect children?
Well, let me explain my answer first. As far as the question itself, my agency, there are many aspects the agency, Cobb Police, does. There are many different avenues. I like to answer the question as far as my unit. I can be more specific answering that question. The fire lieutenant answered the question. The way he handles his unit handles it in a more proactive way. We handle it in a more reactive way. Sure, we participate in panels like this, and we do have seminars where we teach on internet safety and such as that. But the way we get involved with families is a more reactive way. When we receive reports of child abuse, and we receive reports through DFACS or officers on the streets, they call us and say that this family is reporting that a child is being abused in some sort of way. We react to that report. Our protection begins from there. We determine if the child is in danger in the home at the time of the report's made, or if the danger occurs at a later time. Say the child is going to be brought to the time of danger. If the child is, for example, in the home at the time when the danger is occurring, then we would react immediately and remove that child from the danger zone. We have different avenues where we can remove the child from the home or place something, whether it be Department of Family and Children's Services or some aspect to protect that child while an investigation is ongoing. Like I said, we have Department of Family and Children's Services or removing the child until such a time when the threat is removed. And sometimes that is even affecting an arrest for an alleged crime that has occurred. Once a perpetrator is in custody, of course, that threat is removed and the child can be placed back in the home. Let's advance the question further, and an arrest is made and a prosecution is going forward. We then employ the assistance of Safe Path. Safe Paths offer services such as therapy for the child that is free of charge when an investigation is going on. That further protects the child and offers services and protects the child ongoing with the family for any future harm that may come to the child. The child is given the tools to protect themselves from anything happening to them in the future. So that's how we as a unit protect children.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Now, Chuck, because a lot of the things that the other panelists talked about sometimes ends up in the district attorney's office for prosecution. And so obviously we have laws that protect children, but let's talk about the DA focus and the prosecutor's focus on how we protect children in the prosecutor's office.
Okay, Kim, you're right. We kind of unfortunately see the aftermath of it. What happens not only on the front end that Detective Payne and Crystal see when they come in and that pain's really raw, we see kind of from that angle all the way through the process. So kind of what we do is twofold. We try to, I think in some of the investigations and prosecutions, stop these people who would do evil to children before they go any further, and then we take the people that have already harmed children and ensure that they've never do it again. Within our office, as you know, the unit you supervise plays an integral part, our victim advocate program, because those are people who are trained to deal with victims and shepherd them through what can be a terrifying experience. You know, these children and their families have gone through, you know, an earth-shattering experience, something that nobody should ever have to go through. And in that, they're then coming to this environment where they're dealing with law enforcement, then they're dealing with a court system, with judges, everything that they see on TV, their worst nightmares are realized. And so our program not only informs them and keeps them up to date about the court system, what is coming up, what is expected to happen, if a defendant is going to have a bond hearing, reassuring them, no, he's not going anywhere, he's not going to contact you. From then also explain to them, to victims of crime, you know, what avenues they have, because a lot of times they suffer financial harm. They're out of work. Things like this happen, and then our office's victim advocacy program points them in the right direction to the programs that can help them kind of survive in the aftermath of what's happened. Also, those employees, co-workers, they work hand in hand with us through the prosecution, kind of as assisting us. And sometimes, as you know, attorneys, we don't act normal. And so we need somebody to be honest with us and tell us we're being idiots. And so luckily our staff, Crystal Gossett, Jessica, Susan Stern, keep us in line, and they say, look, this is how you're going to help communicate with this victim to get out what you need to a jury to help them understand what happened and understand that while nobody wants to believe that these things happen, they do all too often and all too terribly in our community. As far as what the prosecutors do, we kind of, the way I look at it as a whole with our unit, what we're trying to do to some degree is to give these kids hope, you know, hope that somebody's going to believe them. Hope that, and knowing that, okay, somebody, this group of people where I may have a parent or somebody that didn't stand up for me when this was going on, I've got somebody that's going to stand up for me. And also letting them know and letting the offender and his family know that evil is going to be held responsible. If you do that, you hurt a child in Cobb County, you won't be doing it again if there's anything we have to say about it.
Great, thank you, and thank you for the work that you do. And it's very important to mention that while our panel this evening is focused on child protection, each of your divisions does much more than just work with children. You have adult victims, you do community awareness events and prevention programs and education programs. So I don't want our audience to lose sight of the fact that there is more to your agency than just child protection, and obviously we're going to give some websites and phone numbers at the end where they can learn more about your agencies, but we're going to keep our focus this evening on child protective issues. Chuck mentioned an interesting fact that nobody wants to believe that bad things happen to children, and certainly nobody wants to believe that someone would intentionally perpetrate an evil or bad act against a child, but we know that that does happen. From a fire standpoint, we know fires are set. Or we know that things are just not done that prevent safety hazards and issues for children. We know that people leave children in hot cars or leave people in homes with no heat or no air or no food or no proper shelter or things of that nature. From a prosecutor standpoint, we know that children are hurt as a result every day of acts that are committed. From Safe Path standpoint, we know that children are abused at an alarming rate in our in our country and in our community. And from the police standpoint, all of those issues kind of go in together with the police standpoint, and that they respond to the criminal acts that occur. So we've talked a lot, heard a lot about some investigation techniques, about prevention techniques, and about the criminal aspect of it. Let's bring a little bit of it back to the community level and talk about child protection in general. I think that each of you, from your personal and professional experience, will have no problem answering this question, okay? So the question is, how can you encourage an open and honest dialogue with a child, maybe your child, maybe a neighborhood child that comes to you for advice or assistance, so that that child can tell an adult something if something is going wrong in his or her life? So how do we as adults foster those communications and those relationships with children? I'm going to start with the detective so that we go in a different format.
That's kind of a tough question to answer, actually. It begins in the home. You can't start an open dialogue with this type of subject. The open dialogue needs to begin with simple subjects from the beginning, and then expand into more difficult subjects before this subject can begin open. So that's my answer to that question. The dialogue needs to begin long before with simple subjects, and then this subject becomes more open as the other dialogue starts.
Excellent. Thank you. Crystal?
I think he brings up a very valid point. It can't just be that one conversation. It can't be the scary topic. It has to be something that you consistently discuss with your children. Just like we tell them, brush your teeth. Make sure you're eating your vegetables. You know, a lot of time we talk about how we can keep our physical body healthy, but also there's another part of keeping our children safe and healthy in a different way, and that's having that conversation. You know, so as parents, as professionals, as community advocates, that's one thing that we strongly encourage and advocate for. And, you know, it does begin in the home.
Great. Thank you. Chuck?
I think the first thing you have to do is have trust. You have to have trust with the kids, both from a personal and a professional standpoint. I think that we don't give kids enough credit. That they're smarter than we think they are, and they know when when we're trying to fool them. So I think you have to build trust with them and say, look, you know, if I tell you something, you can take it to the bank. And so when it gets to more serious matters like Detective Payne and Chris were talking, okay, I know my dad, I know my mom were upfront with me about this before. They said that this was a danger. I've seen that. And now when it comes to something much more serious, okay, I've seen that they may be old, they may be crazy. They know what they're talking about, though, so I can trust what they have to say. I think also being involved, just being involved in your kid's life, not tapping out, being involved in your social events all the time. You know, if people are on the computer all the time. You know, I've seen it, and I see it in our cases where you've got absentee parents. They may be in the home, but they're not involved in their kids' lives. And so if you're not involved in your kids' lives, you're not going to know what questions to ask and what to look for.
Excellent point. Thank you. Lieutenant?
I'll try to answer this with a program that we offer at the Safety Village. It's the Juvenile Fire Setter Program. There's some youth out there, they enjoy setting fires, and a lot of times we get it when an engine company responds to a brush fire, and they'll send us an email and say, hey, can you contact this family and see if we can help this child? So what we'll do is we'll contact the parents, of course, before we talk to the children, and we invite them in to our Safety Village. And we have a program. So I guess you could say this program kind of helps the parents and the child communicate. It brings them together. We at first, of course, we separate them, ask them certain questions that we have that goes along with the program, and then we bring them together and we teach them how to talk to each other, like you said, kind of like the trust. So it can hopefully prevent actions like this. Sometimes it goes beyond what we can do, and then we have to go and ask other agencies for help and stuff. But we can at least try to open up and bring the parents and the children together and hopefully open up there in front of us. And it's an environment it's neutral, so it's not too intimidating or anything. And usually we have very good outcomes with them. I mean, most of the cases that we do, it's very good outcomes, and the kids go on and do fine.
Very good. Thank you for educating us about that type of program that exists. We have lots of questions about the issues of bullying. And rather than fire out the questions individually, I'm just going to open that topic up to you so that each of you can kind of take an opportunity to tell us what is bullying. Is there a difference in live or face-to-face bullying versus social media or cyberbullying? And then what you do, or your agency does to respond, to educate, or to intervene in those particular types of areas. So I don't know if any one particular person wants to start, but let's just have some conversations
I'll go
about
with it, I guess.
bullying. Excellent. Thank you.
First of all, I feel that bullying can be verbal or physical, and it's funny that we talk about this, and hopefully nobody makes fun of me. But on the radio this morning, actually going to work, there was a lady crying, and that's something you usually don't hear on the radio. So of course it caught my attention. I was listening, and this is a kind of different type of bullying that we don't see every day. And she was very upset because the bullying didn't come from other people; it came from her family. It was simple bullying, as in her parents saying, just calling her certain names or making fun of her weight, and it really would upset her. But she held it in for all this time. And I guess the story more or less is someone more or less taught her that she was a beautiful girl, and that's how she grew up. And they actually were able, at the end of it, 20 years later, they came together. And this lady's, the woman that helped her daughter was actually being bullied. So it kind of brought it together, and everyone knew. And parents were calling up saying, I do the same thing to my child. One parent actually called up and said, I'm going to go to my school right now, take my child out, and I'm going to have lunch with her, and I'm going to apologize. So that is one thing. Bullying could be not only from other people, but could also be from the family. Mm-hmm. So you have to be careful. Also, bullying is not only, a lot of times I look at it as, I think kids need to learn to step up to bullying. Not when they're being bullied, but if you see your friends bullying somebody, I think you need to understand that it really can hurt them, mm-hmm. and that just step up and intervene and say, hey, what you're doing is wrong. I think down the road, everyone, if you were ever someone that bullied somebody, you're going to feel guilty sooner or later in your life.
Okay, thank you. Chuck?
Well, I think bullying kind of has taken on different aspects today in today's world. I mean, you have your usual, playground, one kid picking on the other type of bullying, which can be bad and traumatic as well. But I think it gets more complicated in dealing with it these days with social media, phones. You have kids running around with phones these days, younger. I just can't believe it. But via texting, via social media, in all those manners, bullying can be committed and kids can be victimized. And the problem with technology is not only are people that know these victims bullying them, they're people who can remain anonymous because of the internet. They can get on Facebook or Twitter or things like that and just post random things and not be held accountable. The victim is still traumatized, and then how do you go about stopping that? So I think that is a big problem, and that can lead sometimes into criminal charges. I know with Detective Payne and I, sometimes we have sexual exploitation through this way. We have, it starts out, somebody may be tricking another student, talks to them, tells them to send photos or something like that, and then bullies them into doing even more graphic things. And at that point, they then basically extort them into sending pictures and videos and things of that nature, causing kids, grave mental pain with these things. So I think it's kind of, it's not only gone off in a different direction, but it's gotten even, it's, I guess the dangers and the outcomes can be worse these days than it used to be, just your typical on the playground type of bullying.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Crystal?
I think they really make some valid points as far as bullying. Of course, that's not our area of expertise, but it does run in circles sometimes with all the internet interactions that children have. It's so accessible today. We have to really talk with our children about that and educate them. Here are the dangers. What do you do if someone reaches out to you? You don't really know who you're talking to, so we have to be very careful in terms of bullying and also just ensuring that our children are safe while they're on the internet.
Great. Thank you.
Just to speak on bullying, just there, you asked the difference between bullying in person and bullying over the internet, cyberbullying, as it's called to. There's not a representative from the school district here, but the schools do have programs in place to cover bullying. And when I speak with parents who ask me about what does my child do about any bullies at school, or they are dealing with cyberbullying from different boys and girls at school, the schools do have programs for this. They have programs to deal with the bullies, where they could lead to suspensions. It could lead to all kind of things. They do protect the people who are being bullied. Past experiences with kids, bad experiences with kids who have harmed themselves and gone through traumatic experiences have led to certain laws that the schools abide by to help the kids that are being bullied. Some parents ask me, what do I do if my kid is being bullied over the internet? You know, whether it be the social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, all these different sites that these kids with these phones have. And I typically tell them, do they need to have that Instagram account? Do they need to have that Facebook account that they're being bullied on by these other kids at their school? My answer to that is no, they don't. And I'm speaking from experience here. You know, I have a young daughter who does have a cell phone, and she doesn't have these sites. However, they don't need these sites if they're being bullied or something. They don't have to look at these sites. They don't have to be bullied on it. That's a choice by the parents. It's completely up to them. But if they're being bullied on it, they don't have it. They're no longer being bullied on it. It doesn't make it go away. I'm not saying that that's an excuse. That's an immediate tool to make it go away. But it is an option that you have. But the school is the ultimate resource for that. As far as the police department is concerned, if it's an ongoing situation where it's a harassing communications, that is typically how we handle that. Something like that is a harassing communication. But the schools really handle the bullying, and there is good rules in place that the school has, good resources.
Great, thank you. And not only do the school systems have programs targeted against bullying and helping victims of that bullying, they also have school counselors available at every level of the school system, so that the children who are involved in the school system have the ability to contact those counselors and receive therapy or mental health assistance through those outlets as well. Crystal, did you have something to add?
Yes, I also wanted to share a resource. The National Missing and Exploited Children website, NCMEC, has excellent resources for parents and children in terms of internet safety, bullying. So that's just another great resource as well. So I know we're talking about empowering and educating and providing resources. So I just wanted to share that.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to switch topics a little bit, same area with protecting children, and talk about the issue. A couple of you've mentioned this word, sex trafficking. What does sex trafficking mean? Why are our children in danger of that? And what are we doing to combat this issue here in Cobb County? We're going to exempt you from this. Chuck?
Oh, great. What does sex trafficking mean? Well, you know, I guess people hear that word trafficking and they think a million different things. They think of drug trafficking, things of that nature. What that means in the state of Georgia, and kind of more of a, I guess in a global sense as far as this type of prosecution, it's basically using with adults and things of that nature, coercion and things that involved to force people into this type of act, to committing acts of sexual servitude, committing sexual acts for money, things like that, either against the will of somebody who is over 18, or if they're under 18. Obviously, when you've got children, you're not necessarily so worried about if they've been coerced or deceived, because they don't have that mental makeup yet to decide whether, you know, they're going to go out and commit a crime or not. A lot of the crimes that we prosecute and we see here involve runaways, children that have come from troubled homes, things like that. And unfortunately, I've worked in Fulton County and Cobb and other rural jurisdictions, and it's kind of cuts across the board. You have a lot of children who are almost like, you know, that child, almost like in you hate to say, like Animal Kingdom. You see the animal who's moving a little slower than the rest of the herd. They've got a problem, and a predator sees that. And so they see that in these cases, and they find it, and they prey on these children, not only for their own sexual perversions, but to make profit. And so what that means generally here for us, especially for our unit, we concentrate on what we see mostly are young teenage girls that are being trafficked in Cobb County, all across the metro area. I have several cases right now where the same victim has open cases in Clayton, Fulton, DeKalb, and Cobb County. They have been, and it's not involving the same pimp or the same trafficker. These are all different people. The girl will go in, become a victim, get out, try to get services, run away, and then is back in it. What are we doing to combat it in Cobb County? I know with law enforcement, they really try to step it up as far as their resources are teaching and training some of the detectives in the Crimes Against Children unit to recognize these type of crimes, because I think a lot of the problem with the lack of is not that this wasn't going on, is that it wasn't recognized on the front end. People didn't know the signs to look for to say, hey, this doesn't look right. This girl looks young. She's hanging out with this older guy. They're in there shopping for lingerie. Something's up. Or why are these 3 13-year-old girls in a hotel room off of a certain road at all hours of the morning with this random guy that we see here renting rooms all the time? There are more tools in place in education that people recognize these things. So I know our unit has taken several cases on recently. We've taken a more, I guess, proactive role. Instead of just seeing these cases when they come into our office, we're working with Cobb County, with the FBI, with task force, actually a Metro Atlanta task force that works with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and other organizations and other law enforcement organizations to coordinate and communicate on these cases, because they cut across so many different jurisdictions. So now, instead of just getting the cases when they come in, we're not going seeking, trying to find crime. We're just trying to go ahead and uncover what's already there and actually prosecute it to the fullest extent of the law. We've been given new tools over the last few years with stronger laws involving the prosecution of human trafficking or sex trafficking, as far as what we have to prove at trial, as far as the sentences that defendants get on these cases, and the services that victims of these crimes get. In addition, I know Attorney General Olens he's put into place, he's hired a new a sex trafficking, human trafficking prosecutor who is responsible for kind of taking an overarching look at prosecuting these cases, doing a lot of training statewide. And I know we're working on a couple of cases with the AG's office now, trying to help them get up and running, because we have several cases here. And honestly, as you know, working with the government, we're not going to turn down any resources we have. So if they're willing to help, we're going to take it.
Great. Thank you. Crystal?
Well, I guess what I can say about that is a lot of the children that become victims of trafficking, from my experience working at Safe Path, is that it doesn't just happen when they become the teenager. Mm-hmm. And the difference a lot of times from the younger child and the older child is that they come off as angry, or they're not the, oh, help me please. Mm-hmm. That they're street smart. And so a lot of times they get labeled as the problem child. But statistics have shown that a lot of times those children are the children that we see at itty bitties who haven't gotten the safe path or haven't had those advocates, community people protecting them, to look out for them, to speak on their behalf, or maybe they did share their story and nobody protected them. So very often it's not the first time they've been around the bend, so to speak. And so we have to make sure that when you have a child that's been through the system, kind of knows what to expect already, to reassure them that we are here. And I'll tell you, we have a very strong team in Cobb County. Our district attorney, Vic Reynolds, Chuck, here, our law enforcement, we have a great partnership, and we're fully committed to making sure that children in Cobb County are protected. So,
great, thank you. Detective?
Yes, as I already said, I'm part of the FBI task force, the Metro Task Force, that does the sex trafficking for minors. To touch on a little bit of what Mr. Boring was saying and Ms. Weeks, you'll find an overwhelming majority of these kids that are involved in the sex trafficking, when they were younger, they were abused or neglected in some way. These are not your typical kids who just decided one day, you know what, I want to sell myself. They were abused either sexually or they were just left alone and neglected. So when they went off, when they ran away from home, they found somebody that took care of them, somebody that told them the things that they needed to hear, and that's what they found them in that situation. Now, part of my job at Crimes Against Children, I specialize in interviewing kids who were abused in some sort of way, sometimes as young as 3 years old. Go into a room and talk to them about what happened to them. And you have to follow special rules when you do those interviews. But to touch on what Ms. Weeks said about the kids, these girls that are sex trafficked being angry and they have trust issues. Well, when you talk to these girls, you throw all these rules out the window because with typical cases, you get really one shot to interview these kids. With these girls in sex trafficking, you multiple interviews because they just don't trust anybody. And you typically talk to these girls multiple times because they don't want to talk to you. They know the system very well. Like Mr. Boring said, these girls are street smart, and these are very hard cases because these girls have been through the streets multiple times, multiple cases, multiple counties, like Mr. Boring said. Atlanta is a hub for this type of trade in young girls, sometimes even young boys. We have the largest airport in the country. We have a lot of activities in Atlanta with major sporting events, major activities, people coming from across the country to Atlanta, and that's the reason that this is a major attraction. for
And
this type
easy
of thing.
access with our interstates.
Correct.
Okay, so we're going to stay on this topic just a second. We've talked about anger issues, talked about trust issues. We know that one of the signs in sex trafficking is runaways and delinquents. Victims who are caught up in the trafficking industry generally have criminal aspects going on in their lives, like stealing, pimping, prostituting, runaway, delinquents, and that sort of thing. And I know that in Cobb, as in many juvenile courts around our state, there are specific initiatives to, when we see those patterns of juveniles coming in, to ask the right questions, ask more questions, dig a little deeper to try to find out what is the root as to why this person is continuously running away or continuously shoplifting or continuously being caught up in prostitution, in areas of prostitution, to try to get to what Detective Payne alluded to, the root of what's happening, and not just necessarily those surface questions. So there are intervention programs, there are prevention programs, there are nonprofit agencies around the state who provide intensive therapeutic services for those victims who get caught up in those trafficking issues. So we are doing, I think, what we can all agree is our level best in Georgia to respond to these issues and to protect the children from these issues. We did, one of the comments that was made is about boys. Boys also can be victims of sex trafficking, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the dynamics behind that are the same. They get caught up in this industry. As Chuck said, a predator takes advantage of them, and as the detective alluded to, it's somebody is fulfilling a need that this child is not getting at home. So again, we've circled back around to this. It all starts in the home, and if we don't have parents that are protecting children, hopefully we have community members who are doing their best to protect children, to be, whether it's a firefighter or a police officer or a nonprofit or a teacher, to be there to be an advocate for that child. We've used the word child a lot. Chuck, I'm going to ask you what the legal definition is of a child, and what courts respond to issues age-wise with children.
Like how they respond, like how they deal with children?
Yes.
Or, okay. Legally speaking, a minor is less than 18 years of age. So if you're 18, you're not a minor. So our crimes, the different crimes we have, it really can differ as far as, like, in child molestation, it's actually under 16. So child for that purpose has to be somebody under 16 years of age. But
I want to make a point here,
Yes.
which means
Yes.
a person under the age of 16.
cannot consent to any sexual acts. So that, yes, 16, however, that is the age of consent. Now, people should be aware, and that's what we have a lot of these sexting cases. If you possess a photograph or a video of anyone under 18, not necessarily committing an act, but if you possess a video or a picture of somebody, that is a felony if they're under 18. So there are a lot of different nuances, but generally a child is considered under 18, and then you have to apply the law. Now, how do the courts deal with minor victims? There are a lot of things that we can do, and I think the impetus is a lot on the prosecutor's office in educating the court about issues, how to create a child-friendly atmosphere in the courtroom, file a motion to require both the state and the defense to ask child-friendly questions, not necessarily friendly as in the adversary system, but ask questions that aren't confusing in a manner that the children will understand. Also, the child a lot of times will be uncomfortable. They can have a loved one in the courtroom. One of our victim advocates from the courtroom will walk them into the courtroom. We always prep them, let them see the courtroom before they have to testify, show them where everybody's going to be sitting, what questions are going to be asked, and kind of reassure them that everything's going to be okay. Because I know people worry about they're going to act up in court, the defendant's going to act crazy. Not in Cobb County, because the sheriff's office are not going to allow that, I can assure you. I'll leave that at that. So, in any event, I think the courts, the judges on the courts in Superior Court in Cobb County take a great effort to make the environment as comfortable for a child as possible, doing what they need to do, taking breaks every 15 or 20 minutes if necessary, because we all know children's attention span, my attention span's terrible. You can only imagine me at like age 7. So a lot of these kids we have problem ADD, ADHD. You have to kind of meet the child where they are. And I really do think Cobb County does a great service through the courts in dealing with children and getting them through this process. I know Crystal has some books and things like that kind of help them through the process. A lot of, I think we do too, kind of the coming to court, like coloring books and things like that, to not necessarily make it fun, but educate the children in a way that they'll understand it.
Great, thank you. And I want to make one distinction. We can stay with you for 1 second. A child is legally under the age of 18.
Yes.
But over the age of 17, a person can be charged in adult court.
Oh, yes. You are an adult at 17, even though, yes, you may be considered a minor, you're prosecuted as an adult. And if you commit certain crimes and you are 13 to 17, you can be charged as an adult. You can be a 15-year-old, and if you commit murder or aggravated child molestation, numerous offenses like that, an armed robbery with a firearm, you can be treated like an adult. So there's definitely that danger there. If you commit acts that are adult in nature and that violent or that serious, the courts will treat you as such.
Okay, thank you. I want to spend a little bit of time focusing on a couple of agencies in our community, and I think each of you can talk about these agencies and how you partner with them and how you work with them, and that's the school system and DFACS. Those are two very important agencies in our community that have specific programs and specific response areas in protecting our children. So if each of you could just talk a little bit about how you work with them, how you partner with them, and the programs that you know that they offer as far as protecting children in our community. Lieutenant, do you mind starting with that one?
We have a very good relationship with the school system. The curriculum that we offer is required for these students to take, and they do get graded on it. The teachers love this program that we offer them. They enjoy coming to the Safety Village just as much as the kids do, I think, sometimes. And plus, they get to learn a lot, too. But some of the programs that we offer, of course, is we start out at the preschool level. We can send somebody out at the preschool level and talk to them about fire safety. And, of course, we teach each grade, different levels of curriculum. So, one of the educators just came up with a neat prop where you teach these preschoolers to crawl under smoke if there's some. and she went to Walmart and she made this, looks like a blanket out of a bunch of different fabric, and her and another firefighter, the teacher, can hold it up, and that just teaches the kids to make sure they stay low under smoke. And it's just different things like that to make it interactive. Then of course we have the kindergarten, and that's where we like to introduce, you know, firefighters to the students. We don't want them to be scared of us. We want them to know that we are there to help them. So when they do see a firefighter in the uniform, or they will put the gear on for the kindergartners, that they know exactly what they look like. And hopefully we can there's always going to be some kids that are very, you know, they're scared. But as long as the teacher's there and the firefighter's there and they see their friends interacting with the firefighter, a lot of times it eases the fear and they come up and talk to them. And then we have, of course, the 2nd and 4th grade curriculum. With the 2nd grade, we talk to them about, we actually have some bicycles that were donated to us, and we teach the kids how to apply, you know, properly put a helmet on, because believe it or not, parents go out there and they'll go to a store and buy the helmet that they think fits, or they want one that's going to last for a few years. Well, that one could be just way too big. So we teach these kids how to properly put a helmet on, and then they can take that information home to their parents. Parents might not be happy about that, but we do. And then of course we teach them how to, then of course they ride it. And it makes it fun when they're on the bicycle and they get to ride the bikes. We also teach them stop, drop, and roll. And of course we have the puppet show, and we talk about aspects with that. And then with 4th grade, we have what we call a pre-visit, which we go out, we go to the classrooms, we talk to the students what they're going to get to see at the Safety Village, and they come out, and that's when we go into a little more. We talk about police related prevention, and we talk about bullying, gun prevention, what to do if you do see a gun, such as make sure you tell an adult, don't touch it. We talk about bullying, you know, how to recognize it, how to stop it if you're able to. And then also latchkey kids, where, you know, we have a lot of kids, and this is probably a lot different when we were younger, but we still have kids that come home at a young age because both parents work, and we teach them to different steps so they can go in, and when they arrive at home, and one of the steps they can do is, you know, always announce that they're home. When you walk in the door, say, you know, I'm home, even though no one's there, but that's just let somebody know that, hey, someone's in the house now, and if there is someone in the house, they might run away. Make sure they always feel like somebody is at home. Turn the TV on, turn the radio on, have the lights on. So when if somebody might drive by, they say, well, you know, there's somebody at that house. I'm not going to try to rob that one. And of course, we talk to them and try to teach them and their parents to have a safe place. Of course, always try to exit if someone enters the house. But if not, have a safe place where the family can go until help arrives. So.
Great. A lot of practical things.
Yes.
That, you know, just because you're a parent doesn't mean you come with a handbook to teach you how to properly protect your children and raise your children. So a lot of practical aspects put into community programs that assist with those. So thank you.
And that's the toughest thing too, is making sure this information gets passed along to the parents. That's why we try to make sure. That's why we offer pre and post test, where they get a grade. They have to take it home. We're actually now, the board is actually talking about now is some apps and some videos, and this is all in progress. We hope to get it up soon, and where, and this is exciting. This is new stuff where this technology allows us to, videotape us in this village, and then a parent can ask, what did you do today at the Safety Village? Well, I'm glad you asked. Can I see your phone? And they look at the phone, and they see a 3-minute video of Stop, Drop, and Roll, or Sparky's house. And so the parents get to see that, and they're able to help the kids, come up with ideas to make their house safer.
Nice. Very innovative. Great. Okay, Chuck, so we're talking about partnerships with DFACS and the school systems.
I have to follow that, really. Make the DA's office look bad, thanks. Actually, we do some things in addition. I mean, you may think that the usual, okay, we coordinate with the school system. Obviously, a lot of the outcries of abuse come in within the school system. So a lot of times our first outcry witnesses are teachers or counselors or things like that. And the school system really helps us work with coordinating, dealing with that. And they know setting up protocols. They teach their teachers about mandated reporting, about how to recognize signs of sexual or physical abuse in children. So in Cobb County, they really take a proactive approach, not by just knowing how to report it, but how to recognize it. But kind of on another level, I think our office works with the school systems in several other ways. I know a lot of the people in my office will go to schools and speak to schools on career days, things like that. We'll read to classes, things of that nature. We also have several, I know a couple of our judges have really taken a shine to this, having students from elementary and middle schools that have a program within their classes doing a mock trial. And they will come into the courthouse and the judges will set it up, and some people from our office will help these little kids come in and basically perform a trial, usually about, Johnny's bike got stolen, did it really happen? And the kids really get a kick out of it and have a great time. So I know that the DA's office and the courts have been working and doing that a lot to kind of get the schools integrated and kind of know about the court system to some degree and help them with public speaking. I know a lot of times they will also call on us to come speak to schools, students, and parent organizations about different topics. They will ask us to come talk about, I think one of the popular topics the past few years is sexting and the dangers of that, what that is, and how you can prevent it and stay aware and kind of monitor your kids and have that honest conversation with them. Additionally, a lot of going and talking to schools about gangs, about, the no snitching attitude, or the problem we have now where, children, it's frowned upon to actually, when you see something wrong, tell about it. So I know different programs like that, we've had a good bit of interaction with the school system in that regard. Now, with the Department of Family and Children's Services, working with them, I know they're on the front lines with Safe Path and Cobb County Police and the other police jurisdictions, but they see it from a different angle. They are looking at, okay, what is the fallout? The law enforcement is doing this. They're interviewing these children. They're interviewing witnesses, trying to collect evidence. DFACS is saying, okay, what do we do with the rest of the family? How do we keep this together? And what's best for the children? So we deal with DFACS a lot. We have protocols. They're part of the Child Protocol Committee. They have representatives that help us formulate what are the best protocols for law enforcement, DFACS, the DA's office to follow when there's a report of abuse. Additionally, I think they play a huge role because we quite often see a non-offending caregiver in these child physical or sexual abuse cases. Maybe they didn't commit the act, but they knew something was going on and they didn't say it, or they're protecting the abuser. And so DFACS is there on the front line while they're doing their investigation to try to protect the kids, to make sure they're not left in an unsafe environment, to make sure that, okay, we're taking them out of the parent's home. Are we going to be putting them in an environment with a family member of one of these offenders that is going to either intimidate the child, cause them to change whatever statement they'd given before, or, may not be a safe environment. So I think that is kind of what I see from our standpoint, how DFACS benefits us in protecting kids.
Great, thank you. Crystal?
I would say, because Safe Path, our focus is protecting the child and bringing together the team to encourage a coordinated process. We work very closely with DFACS and law enforcement and, of course, the district attorney's office for these cases. But mainly our role is to make sure that the team is supported as they work to protect the child. And as they're doing that, we make sure that the focus is on the child. We don't get so caught up in our roles and what we do, but also how we can better support each other as a team. We work very closely here in Cobb. Anytime there's a case that comes in that following week, the team gets together. They say, what can we do to better support this child? They work very closely together. But as far as responding to your question, I'm going to default to Detective Payne because he works more closely as a detective in the Crimes Against Children unit, so he'll be able to better answer that.
Well, the question was, how does the schools, right?
And DFACS.
And DFACS. Well, going back to when you initially started this panel, you talked about Safe Path and our unit being a model. Well, let me inject DFACS into that. DFACS also shares an office with us at Safe Path and Crimes Against Children. So we are a model for a lot of agencies within this state. Will try to model themselves after us by the way we're set up. If a case comes in and I'm having to investigate it, where there is an in-home abuse situation, DFACS has to be immediately involved also. So because of that scenario, I'm able to use DFACS, which is readily available at my office. I'm able to use SafePath, which is at my office. I'm able to use DFACS at my office. So from the onset of an investigation, I have all resources at my available right there at hand. I'm able to check everything I need to without leaving my office. It is the perfect model. Going on to how the schools are involved. In Cobb County, we have what's called the Cobb County Child Abuse Protocol. Everyone has to follow the Child Abuse Protocol. The DA's office, the police department, the Cobb County school system. Everyone has to read it. Everyone has to follow it. We also have what's called mandated reporters. A lot of people fall under what's called a mandated reporter. Typically, anybody who deals with children on a regular basis will be under that rule. The rule simply states that if you are aware of any type of child abuse or made aware of it, you have to report it. By law, you're required to report it. And the law states you're required to report it to either DFACS or law enforcement. Most of our reports at the police department are not called in by uniform patrol. Most of our reports do come in from DFACS or the school system. The school system will, who deal with children regularly, will become aware of abuse directly from a child or secondhand knowledge from another child. Either way, the school system, they're pretty good about reporting anything. Even if they suspect something, they'll call it in, and we'll follow up with it. Better safe than sorry. When a child is suspected of being abused, we'll look into it. We'd rather look into it and find nothing as opposed to pass it off and miss something. But because the Child Abuse Protocol is issued by the Superior Court, it is recognized by law, and any violation of that Child Abuse Protocol can be punished by the law. But that's how the school system interacts with DFACS. When they get notified of any type of child abuse or possible child abuse, their immediate reaction to that is to do a DFACS referral, which that gets into DFACS intake, and to call law enforcement. They kind of double themselves up just for safety purposes on themselves. That's typically how that works.
Okay, thank you. And so we've talked a little bit about those agencies, and while my intent of those questions was to educate our community about those agencies, obviously they are the best speakers for themselves, and you can visit their websites to find out more information about how each of them interact with our community to protect children. But DFACS also has programs like social welfare programs and the foster child program and the adoption program, and it's the agency that deals with EBT and what we refer to as welfare and food stamps and those sorts of agencies. So it is kind of a social conglomerate agency where needy families can go for assistance in addition to their role as protective services for children. So let's don't want the community to lose sight of all the good programs that they have to offer. Okay, so we've talked about some specific topics, and I want to continue with two other topics, and that's the topics of peer pressure and stranger danger. Stranger danger is a term that I think my generation grew up with, and then we've kind of learned that most crimes are committed by people that we know, and not necessarily a stranger lurking somewhere. Certainly when there are fires in the home or safety issues in the home, that's intrafamilial issues and things of that nature. So let's start with the topic of peer pressure. Do your agencies deal with the issue of peer pressure? Do you see that manifested in the children that you work with? And if so, do you respond in intervention or prevention and education programs, and how do you do that? Crystal, let's start with you.
I think peer pressure is something that definitely impacts children. A lot of times you hear about it in high school or middle school, but it's even the younger children now, even in preschool, pre-K, you hear the word about peer pressure and bullying. So I think that it's important. Chuck mentioned having that trust and having that conversation with children. I think when it comes to peer pressure, the child can be supported initially in the home if they continue to have that open conversation with their children, but also it has to be something that the organization that the child is in supports as well. They have to be able to feel safe enough to talk to that teacher or that coach. And so I think peer pressure does play an important piece into, children as they grow and, experience life. But I think that as long as they have an outlet, someone that they can go to that, says, hey, we're not going to do that here. That says, okay, peer pressure is not going to be tolerated. These are our expectations. As long as there's that adult or that consistent person, or even the child. Children are so resilient. Sometimes it's the child that says, hey, that's not cool. Like Chuck said before, a lot of times it's that children get shunned when they're saying, when they speak up about something that they know is not right. But I think that we should empower our kids and encourage them to, to do that. So, but to answer your question, absolutely, I think it is something that does come into play very often with children throughout their development, from itty bitties to our teenagers.
Right, and obviously the counselors at Safe Path, when you have a child that is receiving counseling there, those would be issues that they would discuss with them as well, and try to help them deal with those peer pressure issues in healthy ways as well.
Exactly. I mean, you already have the common challenges that children face throughout each development, but then when you throw in them having to deal with something as traumatizing as sexual abuse or physical abuse, that really shakes their world. So, having that support through the natural phases of development for children, as they get the support in what our focus area is when it comes to abuse. It goes hand in hand.
Great. Thank you. Detective?
Peer pressure. This goes back to communication. Everything revolves around communication, and it begins in the home. Simple communication in the beginning turns into bigger communication in the end. If your child's comfortable talking with you as a parent, then they're comfortable talking with you about anything, and that's all that's all it is. As I said, it's my job to talk to kids who have been abused in some sort of way. Typically, I have a short time talking with younger kids and a longer time talking with older kids, but it's focus-based. But I can tell you that they're not going to talk to me about everything. And typically, I will find out more information about that child than their own parents know. And when I talk to the parent after the child, they're surprised to find out what I just found out about their own child, just general information, within an hour. Sometimes it's disappointing for me to tell the parents that, but it all goes back to communication. If your child is comfortable talking to you about anything, then peer pressure is communication. It's a conversation you should have.
Great. Thank you.
Can I add to that, Kim?
Mm-hmm.
I think he made a very valid point. I think that we have to make sure that we are speaking with our children, because if we don't, it makes them more susceptible to that perpetrator that's going to make themselves available to, hey, I'll listen to you, I care, I think that if we're, as parents, as teachers, as whatever your role in protecting children is, a community member, I think that it's important to slow down and make the time to spend with the child, even if it's they want to tell you something that what they had for lunch. It doesn't matter, as long as you have that conversation and you're building upon that. Because if you don't do that and you invest that time with your child, or whatever child that is that's in your care, somebody else will do it. And sometimes it's not the person that we want to be exposed to our children.
Right. Absolutely. Great. Thank you. Chuck?
Kind of where we see peer pressure and what we do most of our outreach regarding that is we kind of stuff we've already been talking about to a degree. The sexting, people are pressured, like within relationships even. Hey, come on, just do this. Just send me this picture, send me this video. Then there's the peer pressure. Hey, let me see what's in, I've got this picture of my girlfriend. oh, send it to me, I won't show anybody, that kind of thing. Also, we see it in a lot of in gang violence, or in getting gangs recruited into that kind of criminal enterprise. A lot of it is peer pressure. A lot of it, like we talked earlier, you get kids who don't have a family or don't have that feeling of family or home and have something missing, and unfortunately, the gang sees that as an opportunity to seize on that. Like, okay, we've got a weak link here. We're going to recruit them to come into our organization. So you get a lot of peer pressure with that too. They see their buddies, they're going out, they're hanging, they've got money, they're doing this or doing that. They may be doing it illegally through drug sales and robbing people and things like that. But, they've got that peer pressure. I want to have those shoes. I want to be cool. I want people to fear me too. So you have that as well in the gang circumstances. You can also get it, and this kind of gets into like the college range, I guess, as well. The peer pressure, unfortunately, when you have people and young kids that are out there partying and doing things like that, getting intoxicated. Unfortunately, we see these cases every year where you have somebody that gets inebriated, oftentimes a female, and then not only because of peer pressure from that, but then you have perpetrators. You have one guy that starts doing something criminal, and through peer pressure, other of his friends get involved too and commit acts. So we see that as well. And finally, I think I've seen it several times in the human trafficking, sex trafficking realm, where you have a girl who is caught up in that, and not only does she get caught up in that, she goes back to school for a week or two, convinces one of her friends, hey, this is a great idea. This is really, we're living that, lifestyle you see on TV. This is great. Through that peer pressure, you get another kid that leaves with her and runs away, and then you've got another victim. So I think that's where we see it most in our job.
Okay. Lieutenant?
I'm going to try to hit this from another angle, and hopefully everyone understands is I'm going to look at it as peer pressure as in a positive way for what we can do. For example, next week we're having a block party off Six Flags Drive, and there's going to be police department involved, the fire department's going to be there, Safe Kids. There's going to be a lot of different organizations going down there, and of course this is a dangerous part of town. And there's been rumors and things going around of different things, and especially with the police department, with what's going on around the country. And it's very easy for us to sit there and say, we just won't go. But that's not what we do. We have to be stronger than what they're going against every day. We have to pressure these kids when they come to see us to see that there's, that we can offer them something positive, that there's something better than someone maybe asking them to come into a gang. So we have to be stronger in that kind of way. Maybe teach them. We also have like a Fire Explorer program, and we have students that come from tough situations, and they get in this Explorer program and they see the positive, and also with the Police Explorer program, they see the positive that can come out of someone in uniform that can help them, that they can do good. And we actually have people now that, since we've been doing the program this long, that we actually have explorers that are becoming firefighters with us, and that's very neat to see, especially when they come from a tough situation, and we can put that positive light and the positive spin on it to where now they're firefighters.
Great. Thank you for reminding us that peer pressure can also be positive. We tend to look at the negative, but I appreciate you reminding us about that. Okay, and so the final topic I think that we're going to try to wrap our brains around this evening is the topic of stranger danger. And I know that, Crystal, I think you brought some safety posters that now might be the appropriate time to share that information with us. And then, Chuck, I know yours comes from the criminal aspect, that most of what we see is not necessarily perpetrated by strangers, and if there are programs within the safety village or fire, and then obviously what police do. So I'm going to let Crystal start us out, because I know you have some things to share with us about that.
Sure. SafePath has my safety rules for children. It's, like I mentioned before, it's a fun, educational way to get children engaged in safety. Although it's not their responsibility to protect themselves, it's ours as adults. It also helps the parent to begin that conversation with their child. It kind of breaks the ice. You get the activity book and get the coloring. You kind of don't focus in on the scary topic that you're talking about. So that's one way that we can support parents. having those conversations with their children, begin talking about safety in a way that's fun. So that's definitely something that we have as a resource for families and children. We've partnered with the Safety Village for their Family Fun Days. We're looking forward to that again this year. So we'll be able to provide that information through that avenue, but it's available free of charge to anyone that's interested. So feel free to reach out, community members. We're here to empower and support you getting involved with our mission in better protecting children.
Thank you. Detective?
Stranger danger. Everyone in the audience and everyone viewing at home can recall seeing the news and seeing sketch artists on the news, or seeing a report here in the local communities of a child reporting someone approaching them at a bus stop, or a child reporting someone touching them in the bathroom at the local store. That's going to be reported on the news every single time it happens, nearly, because something happened to them immediately, and that child reported it immediately. Those instances are rare, and they don't occur. I say that often, but they don't occur as often as other crimes, sexual crimes that happen to kids. In my office currently, there are 7 detectives with the county police department that investigate crimes against children, and on average, we probably investigate a good average 40 to 50 alleged sexual abuses occur to a child a month. Those aren't stranger danger cases. Those are interfamilial or within the family unit cases. Either someone in the family, whether it be a parent, stepfather, another child, or someone invited into the home by the family, someone known, someone that child knew, was friends with, someone that child trusted, something that occurred over time. Those types of crimes aren't usually reported on because it was ongoing. The child usually does not report the abuse because it was a level of trust, often referred to as grooming, that the perpetrator of these crimes don't usually commit the crime until there was a level of trust, and that perpetrator felt like the child was at a level where they would not report the crime, and then the crime was committed. Those crimes, they occur extremely often and are rarely reported. But as far as approaching the stranger danger things, yes, communicate with your child. Tell them what to do if approached by someone. We can all picture the white panel van, free puppies, free candy on the side. Yes. Strangers, we all know what to do. Tell your child, don't talk to strangers. It all goes back to that. We were taught that as children. Don't talk to strangers. Tell your children, only speak to people they know. Trust their people at school. They always know who to go report things to. If something happens, they should report something immediately.
Okay, great.
I guess I'll go into what we teach with at the Safety Village quickly, and it kind of touches on the same topics he was talking about. We teach children how to, if somebody approaches them, to be loud, draw attention to themselves. And then always we try to teach them, who's a positive someone they can go to in the community. We teach them, go to another family. You can go to a cashier, go to a fire station, a police station. You always go to someone that you feel, teach them somebody in the community they can trust, that they can go to. And hopefully that can prevent, something like that happening. But a lot of stuff he touched on already, don't talk to strangers.
Great. Chuck?
Well, after those 3, not a lot I can add. But
Okay.
I think what we do basically in our job, just to I know it's kind of boring, but no pun intended with my name. But I think on educating a jury, because we have like a cross section of the community that are our jurors, and unfortunately, a lot of what we do nowadays, we have to do is dispel myths, or dispel misconceptions in the community about what sexual abuse looks like, how it happens, and who are the perpetrators. And so I think a lot of what we have to do are educate juries and jurors and let them know, look, yeah, we see this, I guess the logo for a child molester is this creepy looking dude hanging out in the bushes by the bus stop. Well, that's not reality. We have to educate them. Look, no, it's the person who does earn your trust, who looks like the normal person, who builds that trust to where you would never expect them, and they take advantage of it. And so I think from our job, a lot of what we have to do is dispel those myths and educate the jury and sometimes the judges, none in Cobb County, but how sexual abuse really works. So
Okay, great. So we've covered a lot of topics and we've covered a lot of material, and we never like to leave our audience without further information. So if each of you could tell us if you have a website that folks can go to look up more information about your agency or to gather more resources about what you do, and we will close out our panel information with that. Lieutenant?
Of course, you can always go to the Cobb County government website, and that's where you can, I'm pretty sure it's on the left side, there should be a link for the Safety Village, and it has updates on different programs that's going to be happening at the village, and also numbers and people and ways to contact us if you need us for anything.
Great, thank you.
it's embarrassing to say, but I don't know exactly what the website is. You're trying to tell me?
It's cobbda.org
cobbda.org, yes.
or .com. Either will
Yes.
get you there.
Yes, or Google Cobb County District Attorney's Office, and yeah.
Google will get you there.
Google will get you there. Also, and anytime if you have a concern or client, always call our office. There's usually an on-duty assistant district attorney who is on duty that day and can answer questions or concerns and point you in the right direction. I know our office also has a Facebook site that updates cases that we handle, things that are going on in the community. I think they updated about this today, and other things like our different units. I know we have a lot of activities with domestic violence prevention and things of that nature. So both the Facebook site and our website are pretty good tools to kind of know what's going on and what we're doing.
Great, thank you. Crystal?
Our website is www.safepath.org. As I shared before, we have our safety posters. We also have our activity books for the children. But we also have the Stewards of Children training that we provide free of charge to the community. We're actually partners in prevention with the Junior League of Cobb Marietta. And through that partnership, we're able to provide the stewards training. And it teaches very practical, simple ways that you can get involved and better protect children. And so we would be glad to have anyone in the community that's interested in taking the training and becoming a steward of children. And they can do that at SafePath, or we can come to their organization if that would be more convenient. So those are things that we want to make sure that the community is aware of.
Great, thank you. Detective?
Yes. As far as educating your kids and educating your family on what to do about safety for your kids, I defer to SafePath's website. The Cobb County Police website is cobbpolice.com. You could also find their website directly through the cobbcounty.org website. I'd like to add, though, to the parents here and parents watching at home, inject yourself into your kids' lives. Know who their friends are, know who they hang out with, know who they spend time with, adults and kids. A high majority of kids have cell phones. I've been investigating these crimes for a while now, and most crimes involve cell phones now. Parents, educate yourself on what apps kids use. It's simple as just researching the app. Type in the app on the computer and look at the wiki on it and find out what it can do, what kids are doing with it. That's where the trouble begins. Why do the kids have it? Just educate yourself, as simple as that. Know what they're doing, know what's going on. A lot of parents want to trust their kids and let them do what they want. That's fine, but don't let something bad happen. Just inject yourself in there and find out what's going on before something bad does happen.
Thank you,
That's it.
Detective. Thank you so much. Thank you to each of our panel members for being here. For me personally, a thank you to you. I also want to remind our audience that there are some resources available in the back of the room, as well as some flyers and informational brochures about upcoming events in the community that you can learn more from, like the Stewards of Children training that Crystal mentioned. It's on the calendar with the dates and times in the back of the room. So I want to thank the panel for being here, for reminding us that child protection begins at home. Sometimes in the community we lose sight of that, but child protection does begin at home. And if you know of a child that is not being protected at home, then I urge you and I challenge you as members of our community to step up and be that person that is protecting that child. So thank you for being here. Thank you to the Neighborhood Safety Commission for hosting our panel again, and I'll turn it back over to Trish at this time.
Thank you. Thank you for attending and watching on TV 23 this evening. We especially want to thank our dynamic panel members and moderator. We are honored to have each of you as our moderator and panel members this evening. We especially thank you and appreciate your dedication to protect, educate, to provide information, shelter, to prosecute the child molesters and perpetrators, and respond daily to emergencies that involve the safety, protection, and welfare of children and young adults. You are appreciated, and we thank you for your daily service to protect all citizens of Cobb, and especially our children and young adults. A special thank you to Cornelius for broadcasting this discussion this evening. Please join us on Wednesday, May 20th at 7 p.m. when our topic will be mental health. Thank you.
Thank you.